Hey boys and girls, today we are going to add and subtract mixed numbers. So this is kind of combining everything we did in the first 3 lessons. So remember, a mixed number is a big number with a fraction, and if we're going to add them, that means we have 2 big numbers and 2 fractions. So I'm going to set them up going this way now instead of across, because we want to have our fractions and our whole numbers lined up together. So I'm going to start by adding the fractions. So 6 plus 2 is 8, and remember that the 10 stays the same, and then 2 plus 1 is 3. So pretty simple. But then remember, we have to take this 8/10 and we have to simplify it. So what do they both have in common? Well, they're both divisible by 2 because they're even, so it comes out to 4/5. So my final answer is 3 4/5. And I like to circle my final answer. Okay. So in the book, they go from an addition to a subtraction example, so I'm going to kind of flip back and forth too. They actually take the same numbers and subtract them this time. So instead of doing addition, we have to make sure we watch our sign. And 6 minus 2 is 4. Remember, the 10 stays the same because they're like denominators. And then 2 minus 1 is 1. Again, we can divide by 2 because they're both even. Comes out to 2/5. So now my final answer to subtracting that is 1 2/5. Okay. So sometimes you might add a mixed number and come out with an improper fraction, or a fraction that is like a 6/6, for example. So I'm going to show you how you would work with that to combine your whole numbers. So 6 2/6 plus 7 4/6. Okay, so we can do 2 plus 4 is 6. Of course, as we know, our 6 stays the same. So see, there's a 6/6 we've got to do something with. But let's add our whole numbers first. So 6 plus 7 is 13. So now I know that anything over itself equals 1. So what I have to do now, because now this is a whole number and this is a whole number, so 13 plus 1 is 14. Okay, I want to see another one here. So let's do, most of these are coming out that you don't have an improper fraction, but I'm going to make one up. I'm going to do 6 5/8 and 3 5/8. Okay, so we might be saying, oh, well, it's the same fraction, so it would just be 5/8, but no, that doesn't work because remember, we add the numerators and keep the denominators the same. So 5 plus 5 is 10/8, and then 6 plus 3 is 9. So now I'm left with an improper fraction. Anytime the fraction is bigger on top, it's improper. So before we think about dividing and simplifying to make these numbers smaller, we have to turn this into a mixed number. So 8 goes into 10 one time with 2 left over, and the 8 stays the same. So now I have 9 and then 1 2/8. So I'm going to take the 9 and I'm going to add that together. So that becomes 10 2/8. So now there's one final step. I want to divide by 2, and I'm going to get 1/4. So the final answer is 10 1/4. Whew, that was a lot of steps. So let's go through that again. So I started by adding my numerators, and I got 10, kept my denominator the same, and then added my whole numbers. Next, I converted my improper fraction to a mixed number. So remember that if you don't remember how to do it in your head, it just goes 8 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. Subtract, and I get 2. So it's 1 2/8, just like I have here. That's how I got it. Okay, so once I have my improper fraction converted, then I have to combine my whole numbers. So I combined my 9 and my 1, and I got 10, and I kept my fraction. I just brought my fraction down. So 10 and 2/8. My last step is to simplify my fraction. So I divided by 2 because they're both even, came out with 1/4, put my 10 with it, so my final answer after all of this is 10 and 1/4. Wow, that was pretty cool. All right, so let's do a couple of subtraction problems. 9 and 10/12 minus 7 and 7/12. So now I'm going to subtract 10 minus 7, and I get 3. My denominator stays the same. 9 minus 7 is 2, so I have an answer of 2 and 3/12. Now 3 and 12 are not even, but they do have 3 in common, so I'm going to divide by 3. Remember, I'm always dividing by the greatest common factor that they both have, and so it comes out to 2 and 1/4. Final answer. Okay, new piece of paper. Sometimes you're going to have problems that are written this way, and they're going to tell you to align. I'm pretty sure we've used this word before in class, but align means that you're going to take these numbers and you're going to rewrite them so that they are lined up this way. And this is a subtraction, not an addition. Watch those signs. That's going to be really important with this lesson because we're combining addition and subtraction on one paper. So 11 minus 1 is 10. 10/12. 18 minus 9 is 9. So I have to simplify my fraction. They're both even, so I'm going to divide by 2. I'm going to come out with 9 and 5/6. Giving you guys a minute to think about this and get caught up. Now, certainly if you have any questions, you can ask your questions in the comments. You can also email me if you have a question. If you're really stuck on something, I'm happy to do small group Zoom meetings or individual group Zoom meetings. The only thing with an individual Zoom meeting is that your parents do have to, or some adult does have to be home. They don't have to sit with you, but they have to be home. That's just a rule that we have when meeting individually with students. A parent has to be available. Okay, so if you're really stuck on something, I'm happy to meet with you, go over things with you in any way that I can. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so here is a bigger addition problem. So I'm going to do 3 plus 5 is 8. And then I'm going to add this just the way I would add it any other time. So 6 plus 8 is 14. Carry the 1. 3 plus 2 is 5 plus 1 is 6. And then I have 64 and 8/10. If we were in class, I would ask you if I'm done, and you would say no, because these are both even. Divide by 2, and it comes out to 4/5. So my final answer is 64 and 4/5. You'll see that sometimes I bring the 9 over there, but I didn't bring it over here. I just wrote it down at the bottom. It doesn't matter which way you do it, really, as long as at the end you have your final answer with your whole number and your fraction. And I recommend circling it. That way there's no question as to what your final answer is. I'm going to do one more of each, and then I'm going to give you some to try on your own, and we'll go from there. So let's do 57 and 5/6. Sorry, it's 5/6 and 5/6 minus 48 and 2/6. Do you see how I'm lining everything up? That's really important in math. In anything that we do, lining things up is really important. I've said that right along, especially with the division and the multiplication that we were doing. You want to make sure you're always lined up. So 5 minus 2 is 3. My 6 stays the same. 7 minus 8, I can't do that. I can't take something that's bigger away from something that's smaller. So I'm going to go next door, make that a 17. So 17 minus 8 is 9. 4 minus 4 is 0. So I come out with 9 and 3/6. Am I done? Nope. I'm going to divide by 3. They both have 3 in common. So it comes out to 1/2. So 9 and 1/2. Final answer, I'm going to give it a circle. And one more addition problem, because I don't want my video to be too terribly long here. I'm going to do 9 and 2/7 plus 6 and 4/7. Sorry, I forgot to move my phone over. All right, so 6 plus 4, 2 plus 4 is 6. 7 stays the same. 9 plus 6 is 15. 6 and 7, do they have anything in common? Nope, they don't. So my final answer. That was a nice easy one, no extra work. All right, so that is adding and subtracting mixed numbers. Feel free to watch the video as many times as you need to. Ask any questions that you need to, either in the comments, in a private comment, or an email. Email is the fastest way to get a response from me. Sometimes those private comments get a little lost in the shuffle of things because there's so many different places I have to look. So email would be the fastest way to get a reply. All right, I am attaching the worksheet to the assignment, so you can go ahead and do the worksheet. Like always, you can, if your device lets you type on it, you can type on it. Otherwise, you can print it out and do it. Or if you don't have a printer, then you definitely will need to write the problems out and do it on paper. No matter which way you do it, don't forget to upload it to the assignment.